The humans woke to blinding light in a hum that vibrated through every cell. Metallic walls curved endlessly, their surfaces shifting subtly, reflecting distorted images. A strange aroma, sterile and chemical, filled the air. No one remembered being captured. One moment, they were on Earth. The next, somewhere entirely alien. Tall, slender beings with translucent, pulsating skin hovered in the chamber. Multiple eyes scanned every human simultaneously. Their speech was harmonic, a cascade of tones beyond human comprehension. But through their advanced translators, a chilling message emerged. The humans were subjects for study specifically to measure pain and endure. Other species had been captured before. They screamed, faltered, and soon succumbed. Humans, however, were different. When the first wave of torture began, machines designed to rip nerves, instruments that fired concentrated bursts of agony, humans did not collapse. They yelled, yes. Some screamed in shock, but many smirked or muttered curses. A soldier laughed through excruciating shocks. Is that all you've got? The aliens recorded everything with meticulous precision. Data streamed across their holographic displays. Fascinating, murmured an observer. This species does not process pain in conventional terms. Hours turned into a day. The devices that had reduced others to unconsciousness barely elicited flinches from humans. When forced into simulated joint dislocations or nerve overloads, some humans laughed, some cursed, others closed their eyes and endured silently. The aliens could not anticipate this. Where algorithms predicted surrender, humans resisted and adapted. Next came psychological torment. Neural interfaces probed memory and fear centers, amplifying trauma to unbearable levels. Other species screamed, broke, and went catatonic. Humans were different. One woman, a psychologist by profession, whispered to herself, grounding in technique. Fear is data. I analyze it, not submit to it. Her calm spread. Other humans mimicked her mental focus, turning fear into a tool rather than a weapon against them. The aliens escalated. Chambers rotated. Gravity fluctuated. Walls pulsated. Temperatures surged from freezing to burning in seconds. Humans stumbled. Yes, but adapted. One man cracked a joke mid struggled laughter echoing off sterile walls. It was a defiance the aliens couldn't comprehend. Another whispered, if this is your best, maybe we should teach you how it's done. By the second Earth Day, injuries and fatigue mounted. Yet humans' endurance only grew. The observers began experimenting on group dynamics. Would humans crack under pressure? Would social bonds become points of weakness? Instead, humans strengthened. They encouraged each other, shared techniques, formed mental anchors. Humor, camaraderie, and empathy became weapons as powerful as their biological resilience. A species-wide challenge was next. A chamber with sensory overload designed to break cohesion. Sounds, lights, and sudden shocks simulated worst-case scenarios. Aliens expected panic, isolation, and collapse. Humans responded with unity. Eye contact, whispered encouragements, shared jokes. They laughed in the face of engineered terror. One man, writhing in pain, shouted, "You're going to have to do better than that." And the aliens froze at the defiance. By the third day, humans had survived what other species could not. Their physiology shocked the observers. Nerves seemed to recover faster than expected. Hearts stabilized under extreme stress, and cognitive function remained remarkably intact. The aliens revised their assumptions. Strength was not just physical, it was spiritual and mental, and humans possessed both in excess. In a final experiment of Part 1, humans were placed in neural matrix pods designed to simulate extreme scenarios, falling from planetary heights, drowning in superheated fluids, being chased by predators that existed only in virtual reality. Other species went catatonic instantly. Humans endured, some screaming, some lugging, some silently calculating. In the process, they adapted their responses, reducing perceived pain and fear. One whispered into the translator, "Nice try, but you'll have to do better." By the time Part 1 concluded, humans had survived the initial wave of the aliens' most sophisticated tests. The observers convened, their harmonic tones uneasy. "This species is unlike any other," one said. "We must reconsider our metrics for endurance and intelligence. They are unpredictable." The humans, unaware of the full implications, rested in their containment units. They had endured horrors that would have killed other species, not through technology, but through spirit, unity, and an unbreakable will. The aliens were beginning to understand. Humans were not just resilient, they were indestructible in ways the galaxy had never seen. The aliens could no longer underestimate humans. Part 1 had proven something extraordinary. A species could survive excruciating physical and mental stress that would annihilate any other life form. Yet the observers were obsessed. They needed to know the absolute limits. Humans awoke to chambers that defied logic. Gravity shifted violently. Temperatures soared and plunged in unpredictable cycles, and walls pulsed with alien energy designed to overwhelm the senses. The other captured species winced, pleaded, and collapsed. Humans, they stood, swaying but defiant, assessing the alien patterns. The first extreme test involved enhanced neuropulses, firing directly into the brain's fear and pain centers. Screams filled the chamber, but humans adapted almost instantly. The pulses became data to be analyzed, not pain to endure. One man whispered, "They're improvising, so we improvise too." He closed his eyes and synchronized breathing with his neighbor. Laughter, oddly enough, emerged mid-experimental reaction alien technology had never predicted. Next came simulated dismemberment and organ failure. Virtual reality matrices induced the most terrifying sensations. Internal organs searing, limbs tearing, heart stopping and restarting. Aliens expected submission. Humans screamed, cried, cursed, but did not collapse. Some even smiled through the torment, a defiance that shocked. The observers, one human said to another, "Guess it's Friday for them." Aliens began studying human group dynamics under extreme duress. Would social bonds weaken or strengthen? As tests escalated, humans found strength in each other. Eye contact, whispered jokes. Mental strategies they adapted collectively, forming an unbreakable mental network. One observer noted, "Their consciousness is not isolated. Pain is shared and mitigated. This is unprecedented." For the third day, humans endured sensory and temporal distortions. Time loops made minutes feel like hours. Hallucinations attacked sight, sound, and touch simultaneously. Humans staggered, but they recalibrated. "Reality is just a suggestion," one whispered, leaning into the chaos. Others echoed the sentiment, finding comfort in shared defiance. The observers escalated further. Now, humans were exposed to simulated extinction scenarios, planetary catastrophes, mass drownings, alien predators, and gravitational anomalies. Other species succumbed immediately, their minds overloaded. Humans endured, laughed at, and mocked the terror, whispering, "Nice try." It was not fear that powered Deem It was choice. Pain existed, but humans chose how to experience it. By the fourth day, some humans began anticipating alien methods, predicting attacks, and even exploiting weaknesses in the devices. It was no longer survival, it was resistance with strategy. Aliens marveled, recalibrating devices only to discover humans had already adapted. Observation logs filled with terms like unquantifiable, anomalous resilience, and spirit beyond comprehension. The culmination of Part 2 involved shared neural testing. Multiple humans were linked in a hive-like neural network to magnify pain and fear. Aliens expected collapse. Humans synchronized, converting pain into collective determination. Some hummed songs, some whispered stories, some meditated. Pain became an instrument they mastered, not a weapon against them. By the end of Part 2, the aliens were no longer merely studying humans. They were re-evaluating the very concept of endurance. The humans had survived, not through biology alone, but through unity, ingenuity, and spirit. The observers began debating. Could a species like this be allies or threats on a galactic scale? Humans rested, exhausted yet unbroken. They had survived horrors designed to annihilate, and the aliens were taking note. The first true understanding dawned. Human resilience was beyond alien comprehension. The observers had come to a realization. Conventional testing was insufficient. Humans were not just physically and mentally resilient. They were adaptive, strategic, and unpredictable. To truly measure them, the aliens needed to push beyond conventional extremes. The humans awoke to a new chamber. Its walls were organic, pulsating like a living organism. Gravity fluctuated violently. Floors rippled, threatening to throw them into suspended ceilings. Air currents carried heat, cold, and sharp sonic vibrations that assaulted the ears and skin simultaneously. Yet humans moved as a unit, careful, alert, aware of the patterns and each other. The first challenge was psychic integration. Humans were linked via neural conduits into a shared consciousness designed to amplify fear and hallucinations tenfold. Each human's pain was multiplied and redistributed across the network. Other species went catatonic within seconds. Humans. They hummed, whispered strategies, and maintained focus. One whispered, "We share it. It's not ours alone." In this hive-like mental construct, aliens observed something unprecedented. Humans manipulated pain as information, converting sensations into signals to anticipate attacks. When an alien device attempted to simulate limb dismemberment, humans collectively braced, redistributed the sensation, and the predicted pain decreased. Observers recorded this with alarm. They are learning faster than our simulations can measure. Physical tests continued alongside the psychic. Humans faced environmental extremes. Corrosive rain, searing heat, freezing winds, and unpredictable gravity fields. Limbs were crushed, skin burned, organs stressed to their limit. Yet humans adapted through improvisation using walls, bracing against floors, synchronizing movement. One woman laughed. Mid-struggle, "Is this all you've got? We call this Monday." Her humor was a shockwave through the observation logs. Alien scientists, frustrated and fascinated, devised the next challenge. Temporal distortion. Time would accelerate or decelerate unpredictably, creating extreme sensory disorientation. Memories became tangled. The human mind was assaulted with past, present, and projected future simultaneously. Most species had already broken under much less. Humans, however, meditated in the maelstrom, grounding themselves, forming mental anchors in shared presence. "Focus on what you can control," a man whispered. Others repeated the mantra, their spirits intertwined. Pain, however, was not just physical or temporal, it was existential. Aliens simulated the death of entire worlds, collapse of civilizations, and the destruction of friends and family. Humans screamed and wept, but they did not break. They processed, isolated, and endured. One observer remarked, "Emotion does not cripple them, it fuels them." By the fourth day, humans began anticipating alien designs. They noticed patterns in device outputs, subtle shifts in energy frequencies, and predicted attacks before they happened. When a high-frequency neuropulse was fired, humans braced collectively, reducing the effective intensity. Their survival was no longer passive. It was tactical. A final test in Part 3 involved shared consciousness under direct life-threatening stimuli. Humans were linked, each pain amplified across all minds. The aliens expected catastrophic collapse. Humans responded with an unprecedented act. They harmonized. Songs, memories, whispered encouragement, humor, and sheer willpower turned the amplified pain into a controlled wave. The observers were stunned. Their metrics failed. Nothing in their databases accounted for this level of coordinated resilience. By the end of Part 3, humans had transformed the concept of suffering. They were no longer mere subjects, they were teachers of endurance, redefining what life, pain, and survival meant. Aliens began to understand that strength was not just in biology or technology, but in spirit, unity, and sheer defiance. The humans rested, exhausted, but unbroken. The observers convened, uncertain, fascinated, and fearful. They had encountered the impossible, and it had looked back at them with laughter and courage. By now, the observers were obsessed. Humans had endured physical torment, psychic assaults, temporal distortions, and environmental extremes with a combination of resilience, ingenuity, and humor that no species could match. Conventional experiments had failed. They needed something more crucible to test human spirit against the universe itself. The chamber for this phase was unlike anything before. It was vast, organic, and seemingly alive. Walls pulsed with a liquid-like substance that absorbed and amplified sound. Gravity fluctuated unpredictably, pulling humans into ceilings one moment, pinning them to the floor the next. Air was thick with particulates that burned the lungs and obscured vision. Temperature oscillated from freezing cold to molten heat in mere seconds. It was a perfect storm of sensation meant to overwhelm. The humans moved as a unit, scanning, observing, supporting one another. Where one stumbled, another caught them. Where one fell, others adjusted to maintain balance. The observers recorded data furiously, trying to model this cooperative resilience. Nothing in their simulations had prepared them for humans adapting in real time to chaotic physics. Next came the ultimate neural assault. Aliens fired waves directly into the human brain, simulating disintegration, extreme bodily pain, and annihilation of senses. These neural pulses were calibrated to destroy cognition. Yet, humans endured. They synchronized breathing, focused minds, and communicated silently through gestures and shared awareness. One human muttered, "If they think pain will break us, they don't know what it is to choose to survive." The environmental hazards escalated. Acidic rain fell from above. Heat seared the skin. Icy winds cut like knives, and gravity oscillations threw humans violently. Yet humans adapted with improvisation, using walls for leverage, timing movements to the shifts, and supporting one another. Observers recorded their surprise. Humans improvised in ways alien logic could not predict. Then came existential horror tests. Aliens simulated destruction on a planetary scale, massive explosions, tsunamis, collapsing mountains, and vaporized civilizations, combined with illusions of loved ones perishing. Other species broke instantly, psychologically obliterated. Humans screamed, yes, but they endured, rationalized, and comforted one another through shared presence. Their laughter, strange and defiant, reverberated even amidst horror. The observers tried one final strategy: hyperneural hive integration under extreme survival stress. All humans were linked, every sensory assault amplified across the network. The aliens expected collapse, chaos, and ultimate defeat. Humans responded differently. They harmonized. Memories, laughter, courage, and sheer willpower fused into a single resilient consciousness. Pain became a wave to be ridden, not endured. They had turned horror into mastery. By the fourth Earth Day, the aliens began to notice a profound phenomenon. Humans were teaching themselves and each other resilience, adapting faster than any algorithm, device, or psychic simulation could predict. Where other species failed because they perceived pain as a threat, humans used it as a tool to refine their endurance and strategy. Observers convened a high council. The consensus was unanimous, though tinged with awe and fear. Humans were not merely resilient, they were an evolutionary anomaly. Their endurance was not just physiological, but cognitive, emotional, and spiritual. No system, no device, no technology could break them entirely. The humans, exhausted but unbroken, were allowed a brief moment of rest. Many whispered, laughed, or shared stories of their past lives. Even amidst exhaustion, camaraderie thrived. They had survived every test the aliens had devised, and had transformed each act of pain into an affirmation of indomitable spirit. The observers debated, could these creatures be allies in the galactic struggle? Or were they threats too unpredictable to control? Could resilience and humor be considered weapons? Humans had proven that spirits could outperform technology. The aliens' curiosity was now a mix of respect and fear. As Part 4 concluded, humans had survived the most extreme tests yet. The observers began to regard them not as subjects, but is something more, a species that might teach the galaxy about the true meaning of endurance, courage, and defiance. The final phase of the aliens' experiment was both a test and a reckoning. The observers had escalated everything: environmental chaos, psychic assaults, simulated extinction events, and temporal distortions. Every conceivable method to break the humans had been attempted. Yet, as the fifth day dawned in the alien chamber, humans were unbroken, defiant, and more united than ever. This final trial combined every prior experiment simultaneously. Gravity shifted violently. Temperatures soared and plummeted. Walls pulsed with psychic energy, and every human was linked into the neural hive. Waves of pain, fear, and hallucination amplified across the network. Other species, long gone, would have collapsed instantly. Humans endured. They leaned on each other, synchronized breathing, shared mental anchors, whispered jokes, and recounted stories of home. Humor and defiance became their armor. One young woman, linked to the hive, whispered into the network, "We are more than your machines, more than your pain. We choose to survive." The words resonated across the consciousness of every human present, amplifying courage, focus, and unity. The observers documented this with growing art. The humans were no longer merely subjects, they were a force of nature. As the neural waves intensified, humans began to anticipate them. They adapted instinctively, converting each surge of pain into mental clarity, each hallucination into insight. Even simulated death and the illusion of lost companions did not break them. Instead, they drew strength from shared experience, turning terror into collective empowerment. Observers communicated among themselves in harmonic tones. "They defy all logic," one said. "Every system we designed to destroy has been turned into resilience. They are indestructible." The final environmental test involved simulated planetary annihilation. Oceans boiled, continents fractured, skies ignited, and cities vanished in psychic projections. Yet humans endured. Where fear might paralyze, they acted together, supporting, strategizing, and laughing. One human shouted above the chaos, "You'll have to do better than this." The laughter echoed through the chamber, a signal of unbroken spirit that resonated even in alien cognition. It became clear to the observers: humans were beyond conventional evaluation. Their endurance was not just physical, mental, or emotional. It was spiritual and collective. Where machines, devices, and psychic manipulation failed, human will prevailed. Pain and horror became instruments of learning, not defeat. Finally, the observers approached the humans. For the first time, their harmonic speech carried respect rather than observation. They acknowledged humanity not as fragile, limited creatures, but as beings capable of surpassing any imposed limit. The humans, wary but unbowed, accepted this acknowledgement. The experiments were over, not out of mercy, but understanding. The humans were released. They returned to their world forever changed, bearing scars of trials unimaginable, but they were also stronger, united, and carrying knowledge of a universe that recognized their indestructible spirit. Across the galaxy, other civilizations whispered their reputation, not in fear, but in awe. The indomitable humans had survived horrors that could have ended life itself. One human, standing on Earth and staring at the night sky, muttered to the others, "We survived, not because we were the strongest, or the fastest, or the smartest, but because we refused to be broken." It was a simple declaration, yet it carried the weight of triumph over a galaxy's trials. The story closed on a profound truth. In a universe obsessed with control, strength, and efficiency, humans had demonstrated that willpower, courage, unity, and humor could surpass all constraints. Their laughter in the face of pain had rewritten the rules of survival. The observers, and perhaps the galaxy itself, would never forget. Humans are the indestructible species, and somewhere, in the far reaches of space, a harmonic tone carried a simple truth across the stars. Where there is human spirit, there is resilience that cannot be broken.